Welcome everybody to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This project pack is part of Project Pack number 20. My name is Molly Hollabaugh. I am super excited to say that. Not my name, but Project Pack number 20. It is just remarkable to sort of look back and think that we have 20 project packs here. So welcome, and let's get started on something new and exciting, right? So Project Pack 20 is all about blossoming tangles. They are a category of tangles that are kind of unique, and I'm excited to do a whole project pack series just on blossoming tangles because they're often the tangles that are, I don't know, they're just big and dramatic, and they are wanting to be the feature of whatever it is you're doing. And I find them to be so strong that they easily stand alone. Blossoming tangles either build upon themselves inward or outward, and they tend to just be the space rather than trying to fill a space. If you have our project pack envelopes, I invite you to gather your materials and join along. And if you don't, use whatever it is you have at home, because we always invite you to tangle along with us, regardless of what materials you have in front of you. As you can see, I got a whole bunch of materials here, and I'm kind of pumped up about this palette. It is a predominantly black and gray palette, and I like having the different gray pens to be able to work with tones and sort of go a little bit darker or a little bit lighter to create textures and drama. And so that's what we're going to be doing with these particular pens. We're also working with a hint of dramatic color, and that is this red Jelly Roll here. And I love playing with that idea of just having little bits of color to add interest, not going overboard and creating a lot of color, but just that little bit, which is curious and kind of creates a neat palette for us. So this is what we have, and then of course I have my pencils and my tortillons as well. I think I'm using every single one of these pens in this particular tile, but if you don't have all of them, like I said, just make do with what you have, and that'll be good as well. And then I'm going to be working today on a gray Zendala. Zendalas are our round tiles. These are really fun. Zendalas are beautiful. You can turn them any way you want. They don't have any up or down. There's something about working on a round surface that's just special. And if you don't have a round surface, you can do this particular tile on any surface you have. And like I said, this is a gray color. It probably looks white on the screen, but it is a light gray. Once you have all your materials, I invite you to join me in the first step of the Zentangle Method. I like to gently close my eyes, but perhaps you can just find a focal point if that's more comfortable for you. But if you like, perhaps take a moment to gently close your eyes. Take a moment to pay attention to your breath. And take a moment to honor gratitude, thinking about one thing in your world you're grateful for in this very moment. Perhaps it's the opportunity to create. Perhaps it's something little in your world or big. But let that one little bit, that one little thing you're grateful for in this very moment propel you forward to the next and the next, and perhaps the next one after that. And when you're ready, I invite you to gently open your eyes or bring your focus to, and let's get ready to draw. I know people are probably like, Molly takes so long in the beginning to get ready to draw. But I figure you can either take advantage of the time to mindfully prepare yourself, or if it's just something you prefer to just get right to drawing, you can always just fast forward the video. That's what's really great about video. So at any point in time, you can pause a video to sort of get caught up or you can fast forward a video if you're wanting to kind of push ahead towards something. So that is what's so great about you being at home and being able to kind of own your process. I like to sort of touch my tile a lot before I get started. It just like gets it ready. I'm not sure why I do that, but it's just something that makes it feel like part of mine already, kind of flexing it and doing something like that. I'm going to begin with my graphite pencil, and I'm going to be working with a blossoming tangle called Waybop. I think originally the step out does not have this first graphite bit, but I like to put a little string in for me to work from, because for me, it makes the tangle a lot easier. And I'm all about making things more accessible to me and my tangling students here. So to start off with, I like to put an orb in the middle to work from. And this orb, I would say, let's see, I'm going to put mine down there first and I'll let you guys look at it for proportion. And but I would say my orb is something like this. And as you can see, my orb's not perfect, but you can see it's circle-ish. I'm going to be using a process that allows us to start with the light gray and then add darkness as we go along. So there's going to be a lot of layering in this tile, and that's what I like about this process. It makes it kind of interesting to me. So it's just another approach to tangling to kind of throw into your toolbox here. So I'm starting with this lighter gray micron, really cool pen. And it's an 05, so it's a little bit thicker, which is kind of fun. And I am going to be starting with some seed shapes. And when I'm talking about a seed shape, I mean a shape that looks something like this. It's like a piece of rice or something like that. Two arced lines meeting. And I like to space out my seed shapes like so. So if you want to watch me for a minute or two, or if you want to jump right in, that's fine. Here we have Yoda. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm going to do like 6 evenly spaced, actually, I think I'll do 8 evenly spaced seed tangles here, seed shapes here. So I'm going to do kind of north and south, going like so. And then I'm going to shift my tile a bit and do the same thing in between. So really what you want is these seeds to be evenly spaced, but I find it a good way to do it is by having them kind of like go directly across from each other. And what's cool about this light gray micron is it actually looks like pencil, I think. So we have these seeds that are kind of evenly spaced. The reason I like to put that orb down is that the seeds can kind of sit on that circle, and that orb is going to fade away by the time we're done. But for me, a nice light graphite pencil line really makes it so that this tangle is easier for me anyway to put those seeds down. So that's just a little trick I use because I know that my graphite is going to fade away afterwards. So I have all my seeds down, and my next step, still working with the light gray 05, is to connect these with this really cool takeoff and land stroke. So I invite you to take your eyes and just play around with 2 of these seed shapes, okay? And we're going to take off and land and create this arc that traces over one side of this seed over to another side of this seed. So it goes something like this. Then I'm going to turn my tile. I'm going to move on to the next pair of seeds, and I'm going to do the same thing. And even though I kind of went over a little bit, it's okay. You can kind of just fill it in. Again, nice arced line, and then the last 2. So when I was laying down those seeds, I knew I wanted an even amount of seeds. So by putting 2 down at a time, I knew I would end up with an even amount. Okay. So I have these all paired up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite sides, but I'm going to be connecting the in-between pairs. So these are connected here, so on the tops they'll be connected in the other direction. So again, nice arced line and land. Tracing over that seed shape and land. Make sure you kind of look at where you're going. You know it's not going to be right here because you don't want to make a complete circle. You want to make sure it's every other. If you've never done wave up before, feel free to do this on a in your sketchbook first if that's more comfortable for you. All right. So she should have something that looks like this. Again, we had the first ones we connected on the inside, and then we kind of tied it all together by connecting the outside. Now we're going to create some auras. So let's revisit those original groupings we did, and I'm just going to create a simple aura around each one. And now I've done this first one, I want to kind of recognize that spacing, this sort of strip spacing, because that's what I want to carry through all of them. So again, a nice aura. Same spacing. Taking my time. And now, if you guessed it, we're going to aura those inside ones. So again, that same spacing. Taking your time. All right. So here we have like a good chunk of our wave up going on here. And there's a lot of different ways to do wave up. So don't think just because I'm doing it this way that this is the only way to do it. So we have these really cool kind of rings going on here. And what we're going to want to do with the next step is try to figure out a way to sort of tie these two together. And original wave up, you could put just a simple ring and then it would look like a series of rings together. But we're going to make things a little bit more interesting today because we can to create this blossoming tangle. So I want you to look at this outside aura, and that's the line we're going to be working with to begin with here. And I'm going to create sort of a pointed shape here that goes down to that outside ring. And then I'm going to look at this inside of the ring, and I'm going to actually go create sort of, if you're holding it this way, I guess it's sort of like a V shape. So we have something interesting going on here. It's a little bit different. So I'm going to turn my tile and do that again so you can see how that works. So again, this outside aura that we worked with, you're going to create kind of a point. And then the inside one, kind of an interesting shape. I love working on these zendalas because they have quite a bit more space than the squares, and it's fun to just keep turning your tile. All right, so we have some interesting things happening here. So these are kind of, I don't even know what shape they are. It's like a guitar pick or something like that, which is kind of interesting. And then I want to connect these inside rings now similarly to how we did that one. So working first with this top band here, I'm going to actually simply just put a line that connects those. And then this part, I'm going to sort of mimic that V shape, like so. It's just deciding a stroke and then continuing it throughout. So there's no wrong or, right way to do it. There's actually probably many right ways to do it. Repetition creates the pattern. So it's like whatever you decide, when you repeat it, it looks intentional and purposeful. Sometimes just changing it up a little bit creates something new and different, which is exciting. So again, locating this kind of top stroke there, continuing it on, and then that's pretty cool. So we have all these like different spaces that are starting to appear, which is really neat. And those are gonna sort of open up some opportunities for us. So I'm gonna put down my light gray pen for right now, and I'm gonna pick up my dark gray, and I'm gonna start to fill in some different things here to start to create more space. So I think what I would like to do right now is take this darker gray micron, it's an 01, and I'm going to just go back to these seed shapes. And what I'd like to do is fill them, because I think that'll make me be able to break things down a little bit easier. And I'm not going to fill them in with ink. I'm going to fill them in almost like peas in a pod. Turning your tile as you work. Just taking your time. And we're going to be, again, working with layers. So as these pens are going to start to layer up, which is exciting. As you can see, just by adding these little peas in here, you start to be able to see the pattern appear a little bit differently. I love taking a space and kind of filling it in with orbs like this, and we're going to kind of play around with this idea in a few different ways here. Reminding yourself that your pace is always the right pace. Some people say, oh, I tangle too fast, I tangle too slow. You're tangling just right for you in this moment. So if you need to pause the video or move ahead, feel free to do that. That's why these videos are great. So I'm gonna pick up my black pen and I'm gonna add a little bit of drama here. So I'm starting to layer things up. So I have this black 01, and I'm just seeing here, we have these kind of cool spaces that have shown up right here. They're like these, I don't know what kind of space that is. In that space, I'm gonna do a really simple tangle called striping. And again, this is gonna add some drama to the composition and start to be able to play around with our details. So one of the things we're focusing in on this project pack is a blossoming tangle. But at the same time, we're playing around with other tangle genuses that complement, working with this type of composition. So basically what we want to do is create a series of evenly spaced stripes. And what I'm trying to do is mimic that original arc all the way down. And once we have all those drawn, I'm just going to very deliberately ink in with the black every other one. I'm using my 01 and I'm enjoying kind of that process. If you have a fatter pen and you want to play around with using a fatter pen, that's totally fine with me. There's a lot of times where I might do that, and then there's other times where I just sort of am enjoying the process of back and forth and watching each stripe slowly get filled in. This is the part of tangling that I think actually takes some time to kind of marinate in your practice, filling in. When I first started tangling, I found myself getting anxious with filling in. So I do little bits and take breaks, and that's, a wonderful approach. And then I found myself doing it a little longer each time. And now I kind of find myself looking forward to doing some fill-in work. It's like this sort of opportunity to let go, and it's the type of work that really I find myself getting lost in time. And sometimes that feels magical. So just taking your time, focusing on how the pen tip follows back and forth, easing up on your strokes, and just finding comfort where you find comfort. So as I was saying before, with these blossoming tangles, because they're big and proud and they take up a lot of space, a lot of times there's opportunity to sort of complement them with either some drama tangles within, or perhaps some texturing tangles. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in these lessons. Oh, I have actually another space here. So we've obviously skipped ahead here. I'm just finishing up my last one, but you can definitely pause the video here and fill in all your stripes. But just so our videos aren't crazy long, we sometimes will do that. But continue to take your time filling in each stripe, just focusing on one at a time. And, like you said, I said earlier, if you want to use a fatter pen to fill in, that's fine. There's something about kind of playing around with the 01 and, always need to go back and add a little love here and there. But now we have this kind of fun drama going on. Things are starting to take shape a little bit. I'm gonna pick up my gray 05 again. And I'm gonna add a little bit of texture. So the space I'm looking at right now is sort of these spaces in here, sort of behind what we were working on. And so I'm going to begin here, and then we'll travel inward. And I'm going to be playing with a very simple tangle called printemps. I'm sure many of you know it, which is just basically a spiral. And I'm just layering them right next to one another, taking my time. They can be bigger or smaller. Just be aware of where you are. You want to just fill the spaces behind. And again, this is starting to sort of help the pattern, the waybop, take shape, which is kind of fun. Working with those lines close together, and that's what creates the texture, these spiraling lines close together. And again, I'm using the light gray, the lighter gray, it's an 05. Going right over that string line, now we can kind of start to make it disappear. Turning your tile as you work. And I'm kind of going into the middle. And I want to make sure I'm not going into my little shapes here because I want to hold on to that shape. So might ink in little bits here and there between the spirals. That's fine. Taking your time. That's what's so fun about Zentangle strings is you kind of put them down for structure, guidance, suggestion. But by the end, the patterns have taken over. The string lines fade away. Slowly filling the spaces. Taking your time. Again, we're going right over this string line, just starting to get rid of it. And you can do wave up without that, but I actually feel like my seeds kind of fall in the right place when I do that. So that's why I start off that way, but it's up to you. You don't have to. Sometimes putting down a string just gets something down on the paper to start with. All right, so that kind of gives us a little bit of background, which is funny. It kind of takes its own shape here, which is really neat. So now we have these other spaces we're playing with. Cap my gray pen now. And I'm gonna pick up the darker gray pen again. It's an 01, playing with that. So I have this big space up here in these, I think I said guitar pick type spaces, and I'm gonna play around with those spaces now. Again, this is all about layers and kind of picking a space, putting some tangles or tangulations in it. It's all part of this larger tangle we call wave-op. So these are all options in that basic wave-op you can do anything with. So we're kind of taking this to the next level here. So I think what I'd like to do here is just create sort of an inner aura to put some detail. So I'm just playing around with that shape and then coming down like so. So again, hanging on to that spacing with a nice inner aura. If it's easier to do it in the other direction, you can try that. Again, step and repeat. Little bits here and there. So we're going to play around with those orbs again. Again, it's a lot of repetition, but you have this intricate pattern with such simple strokes. So I'm going to start at the top here and play around with putting in some orbs. And these are going to get a little more, it's a little more kind of wonky than when we were playing with the seed shapes, because the orbs are going to get a little bit bigger as we go along. Kind of fill the space. And then inking in. Mine went really wonky, actually. Kind of fun, though. Again, starting at the top. Really smushing them in. Doesn't have to be exact. And then filling in the interstices. And by going back in and filling the interstices, you kind of identify the shape a little bit more. So fun. I think what I'd like to play around with is just these little tiny diamond shapes here. And I think we're going to do something a little bit smaller there. But again, let's play around with sort of like an aura shape. Adds like a little triangular shape, and then we'll smush an orb in that as well. It's almost like jewelry. All right, so this is very much taking shape. How exciting. I don't always do this, but I think what I'd like to do is start to add in some shading, and then I'm gonna play around with probably the pens afterwards. So I don't know, it's a fun way to kind of layer your artwork and then play around with the levels of the grays. So I'd like to start with my graphite pencil here, and I'd like to first shade this background because I think it's gonna make the wave off start popping out. So I'm just gonna go into sort of the edges. And I'm just going to do one space and kind of show you what I mean. I'm using a nice sharp pencil. And just by adding graphite to the edges of each sort of background, these little windows, and then taking my tortillon it actually just starts to pop. See how cool that is? So I'm going to go ahead and do all of this printemps, and sort of allows me to see my wave up a little bit better. So just finishing up on adding that background texture, which is another layer that sort of is bringing this tangle together, which is kind of fun. Now I'm going to add a little bit of shading to these wonky orbs over here, which I think will be kind of fun. And I think what I'd like to do with those is like play around with sort of doing the sides a little bit. And then depending on how your little smushed orbs are, you could put like a little shadow maybe underneath. Again, I love to shade with a nice sharp pencil because that sort of helps keep your shading nice and focused. And you don't want to overwork it with the tortillon, just enough to sort of blend it so you still have those highlights in the middle. This is my first one that I did get a little wonky, but I kind of like it. It's fun. Embrace our character. It's like sometimes just a little bit different. Just wanted to do that, I think. Looks like it's melting a bit. One more. What's fun about these gray microns is they like are close to the graphite, so you have this really neat ability to get pen strokes and pencil that kind of do two different things, but they're have the same quality of tone, which is actually really neat. So I'm sort of super into these gray pens. They come in a variety of different sizes and kind of play with them. All right, nice. So we're getting there, guys. Moving along. All right, So I am going to start to add some more layers of pen. So I think what I'd like to do is go back in first with my my darker gray pen and just play around with the outside of these original strokes and sort of start to, I guess, add more oomph to them by darkening them up a little bit. Again, this is my darker gray pen, so I'm just trying to go over those original lines, all about the layers. Just going over these. It's just this process of adding love here and there, playing around with it. There we go. And if you want to do it with the inside aura, that's up to you. Kind of emphasizes the gray. And I like to do this after the shading because it sort of, I don't know, it cleans it up or something. Adds emphasis. They can start to get muddied up when you add the shading. So I love this technique of going back in with the pen. All right. And we're going to probably keep on doing little bits of that here and there. So now I realize I'm going back and forth, but it's like sort of brings shape to the different strokes we have. So it's kind of fun. And you can do these in any order. I'm going to go in and add some shading to this striping here. I think when we went in and reshaped it, it makes the striping the edges of the striping a little easier to see. So striping's fun to shade, and you can see I'm putting in a dark layer of graphite on each side. And it just makes that curved edge. You might bring it in a little bit more on the top. Maybe if you want to emphasize that bottom bit. Really trying to hold on to that white in the middle. Super fun. We're going to go ahead and do that on all the striping. All right, so we have our striping, like every layer starts to bring more to it. And as you approach a tangle like Way Bop, I want you to, start off, there's that timid area where you're like trying to figure out the tangle. But then as we start to add like these drama tangles within it and texture tangles within it, and you see opportunities, like you start to own the tangle a little bit more. And so these blossoming tangles become like a big composition within one tangle, which is why they were so worthy of doing a project pack with them and just really fun. But feel free to take them in your own direction at any point in time. I am showing this fun technique of going back and forth with pen and pencil because the pencil is becoming part of the tangling process, not just like the finishing process. And to me, that's like really exciting. Very fun here. I have just done these striping areas and I'm trying to figure out like what's next on my deal here. What am I going to do? And I think what I want to do is I'd like to add some shading to this original Way Bop to get, control of the layering here. And so I'm going to add just a little bits where the rings sort of overlap. And then you would go in, not too much. You don't need too much to kind of get a handle of that. And then playing around. and putting those bits everywhere they overlap. So I think I've gotten all these spots where the wave-up kind of, oh, looks like we missed one right here. Sometimes your tortillon has enough graphite on it, you can just use that. So you definitely start to see this layering effect. And this is where it's fun to have, I've said this over and over again, because I'm kind of into working in these layers of gray pens, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. But I also think it's kind of adds some punch to your, finished processes. And you can see the layers in between. But I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my black pen and I'm going to go over all of those original wave-up lines once my graphite's down, and I can I use it as sort of an opportunity to play around with some, and actually I think I'm going to add a little bit of white first. Sorry. I'm playing around with it. I'm like looking at this, I'm like, oh, I can play around with white. I do have a white charcoal here, and I think I'm going to go, because I'm on this gray tile, I think I'm just going to add a little bit right before I add that black, because the black's going to clean it all up. So some of these rings, oh, and you can see the difference. I'm glad I did do that. Sometimes when you're coming up with these tiles, you have so many different things going on, and you're like, should I add this? And I know it takes extra time, but I think it's worth it on these gray tiles. You can see the little bits of white. If you want, I don't know, you'll see if there's any other spots you think that would be helpful. I think just in that center part, it would look so pretty. We can always add it in later if we need to add some more. And then take your clean tortillon and kind of just gently invite that wart charcoal into the paper. It doesn't take much. Nice and gently. And we're going to add little bits of it here and there again. So back to my black micron. I'm going to go back and go over those original wave-up lines just to emphasize them before we go on to our next part. At any point in time that you're like, oh, I really like the way my tile's looking right now, feel free to just stop and enjoy that process. So you can see it's like already punching that beautiful original wave-up out just by adding it. And what happens if we had done the black to begin with, it would have gotten all muddied up with the graphite. So I like adding it in afterwards. Kind of paying attention to the lines, turning your tile as you work. Embracing all the little shaky bits here and there. Feel free to go over the same line a few times if you need to. The black really kind of makes it pop off the page. And these are now strokes we've traveled with a few times. Each one kind of bringing a little more character to the stroke. Turning your tile as you work. So you're almost there. And you're going to go back and forth finding little bits here and there you want to add emphasis to. Oh, wow, that changes it so much. That's crazy. All right, so I've left these for now. You might go back and emphasize those with the black, but for now, I'm just kind of going to keep it there. And again, I'm sculpting my lines as I go. There might be little bits that you're like, can go over them to kind of get them how you want them. Playing around with them here and there. All right, I'm gonna do something a little bit fun now. You probably are wondering, what about the red? I'm gonna play with some red in these little original seeds, kind of honor where we started, right? And I have this beautiful red jelly roll. Sometimes you might try it out on the back just to see how it feels. The jelly rolls are much different than the microns. They're a ballpoint, and they take a little bit longer to dry. So you'd want to wait to make sure they're completely dry, not rub your hand over them. This is a color from the original Jelly Roll color collection. I think it's pretty awesome. And I love the way it stands out next to these. Oh, I just missed a little bit. I have to shade there. So when I fill in these peas inside my pea pods here, I don't know if you can notice. I'm going to zoom way in here. I'm actually not filling them all the way to the edge, and that actually creates a really cool effect. So I'm just going to go around and ink all of them almost in. Just another step, creating more details so you get these very complex finished pieces in the end. It's just process. And I think at any point in time you can make the choice to make it more simplified if you want. But what we want to offer here is just another way for you to approach a project and just kind of dig in to your process. I like doing this after the shading because sometimes the shading can get a little dirty. So I add these in. Let the jelly roll do its thing. For some reason, I've found that if I hold my jelly roll a little bit more upright than my regular pen, it flows quite nicely. I like using the red as an accent, so it's really stands out. So we're getting pretty close here. I think what I'd like to do is take my white jelly roll now. And I mean, if you wanted to do these little bits in red too, I think I'm gonna do mine in white. Just because I really want to keep that concentrated red. Do those ones in white. So let's see, I have one more little bit of white charcoal I wanted to add, and I didn't want to do this before because I thought maybe it would get in the way of the shading process. So a lot of times I'll leave the white charcoal to the end. So I'm just gonna put a stripe down the center. So I usually start with kind of where I want the main highlight to do, and as you saw, I put like a stripe, and then I ease up with my pressure going in either direction, almost so light by the time it gets closer to the outside of where I want this highlight. And then just using my tortillon to kind of invite it into the surface. It's fun. You get a feel for the white, how it's going to work. So again, I usually press harder towards the middle and then kind of fade towards the outsides. You can go back over the, right in the middle where you want it to be really, really bright. These project packs become like sort of investments in your tangling practice. So I encourage anyone who's feeling overwhelmed by any project to just pause and just take a minute and know that this is an opportunity to learn and explore your practice and, go on little adventures and understand that we often say there's no mistakes in we say it all the time, no mistakes in Zentangle. But there are kind of challenges and and things that are going to come up. And it's up to you to figure out, like, how do I want to approach this? Do I want to simplify this, or do I want to take it in a different direction? And there's always a way to figure out how to approach things, and you'll start to discover things you maybe missed here and there, kind of go back. All right, so this is starting to take a lot of shape here. You can always go back over the top here if you want to emphasize if the white chalk sort of, you lost your edge. So if your red is dry, I'm going to take my white and add another layer on top of the red. This is kind of fun. Just taking a little dot on top of the red to create another kind of, let's zoom in on that, cool highlight. Really makes them look like kind of neat little, very special seeds. This is like the seed of what we're going to send to another planet to replant magic in the next world. Sort of like when you open up a pomegranate, maybe. I always think that's so magical. Just a little dot with the jelly roll. Remember to be aware of the all right, we are getting so close, my friends. So I think what I'd like to do now is I'm going to add my chop. And I'm going to do it in red. This is going to be our signature for this series of these, playing around with this palette. And let's see, where's a good place to... I think I'm going to put it like right here. And I'm adding in my chop now, and I'm going to call this piece Pretty Done. But actually, before the end of it, I'm going to add a little bit to it as an option for you guys off camera, and you're going to see it here at the end in a minute. Only because I've taken you through a lot of stuff already. Take some time on that chop. So, as I said, I'm going to call this pretty close to done. I invite you all to put your finishing touches on there. But before we end this, I'm gonna embed mine and show you another layer, having fun with it, just playing around with all the options. So once you have these really cool blossoming tangles, you can just keep going and going, till you don't know what to stop. Oh, right. I know I said I was done, but I couldn't help myself and I wanted to add a little bit more. So as I said before, the original Waybop was there. I didn't include this in the lesson because it had already gone so long. But if you're interested in adding something more, I encourage you to explore adding auras and orbs or shading or whatever it is that floats your boat. But there's always fun ways to kind of bring it in other directions. So I just played around with using all three of the pens, the black, the dark gray, and then the light gray, and just added sort of something to like add a little punch in, I think, and a little bit of white here and there, and just playing around with different ways to just add love, I guess. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining me today. I hope you had fun. Sorry to run a little bit long. I can't wait to see what you've created with your way bop. See you later.